Hello, Lighthouse family. Thank you all for joining us and friends. This platform is not just open to Lighthouse family, it's open to all of our friends. And I want to thank you all for joining me. Those of you who are viewing us through Facebook, those of you who are viewing us through YouTube, thank you so much for taking your time out tonight to be a part of this very first Lighthouse Life Class. I'm so excited about this tonight, and I'm so glad that you all decided to join us. And I want to say thank you even to those who will be viewing us later. You might not be here live with us, but you're watching us later. Thank you for taking the time out to watch us this evening. We've got some very special things planned for you tonight, and I hope that you all enjoy tonight's session. So take a moment to like and share this experience so that we can tell everybody we know that Lighthouse's Life Class is live right now. So take a moment, go ahead and share this experience so we can let everybody know that we are live and enhancing our lives tonight. Thank you all for joining us. We are going to open with prayer, and then we're going to introduce my special guest tonight, and we're going to get into our session for this evening. So let us pray. God, we thank you for this night. We thank you for how you've brought us through this day, God. We may not have experienced everything or gained everything that we want. We have you, and that is all we need. So God, we say thank you tonight for your goodness, your mercy, for your kindness, for how you continue to cover us and protect us even through this pandemic, God. We say thank you for provision, God. We say thank you for protection, and we thank you for this setting this evening. God, be with us tonight and allow us to glean what it is that you would have us to glean in this session tonight. We love you, we praise you, and we bless you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so thanks again for joining, everyone. Share this experience, and we're going to get right into our session tonight. So let me first do this. Let me introduce the life class to you tonight, all right? So every fourth Wednesday, in lieu of our Bible class, we're going to have life class, all right? So we're going to have a different topic every month where we talk about something that pertains to practical ways of enhancing our life, okay? Different topics every month. One month we may talk about taxes. The next month we may talk about marriage. The next month we may talk about self-care. Whatever it is we're going to talk about, it's going to enhance and help you practically in your lives. So I want to thank you for joining us in this very first live session. I'm so excited, and let's get right to it. So my special guest tonight, I think it's safe to say that I have known him at this point my entire life, but he is so special to me. And our guest tonight, he's a father, he's a husband, he's a teacher, he's a preacher, he is a real estate broker, he's a mentor, but most of all, he loves God, he's saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, you know, all the good churchy stuff we say that makes y'all feel better when we have somebody on this type of platform. He's all of those things. So why don't you do this? Help me welcome our special guest tonight, Elder Dario Palmer Sr. Come on, clap it up for our special guest tonight. Yes.
All right.
Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me. This is going to be great. It's going to be great.
No problem at all. So listen, we're going to start off with something a little light, and then we're going to get into our session for tonight. So we're going to start with the game of Would You Rather? Okay. So I'm going to ask the question. You'll answer first, and then I'll answer, and we're going to learn a little bit about each other and have a little fun for the next moment or so. Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right. So would you rather lose the ability to speak or the ability to read?
Read.
Really?
Yeah, I gotta talk. I gotta have somebody read something to me. But I gotta communicate.
Okay, cool. Well, oddly enough, my family and friends might not agree with this, but I probably would rather lose the ability to speak because I like reading and I can learn sign language. So, yeah. So that would be mine. Okay, second question. Would you rather go to jail for a year or lose a year of life?
Oh, go to jail for a year.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm
Okay.
going to be ministering there. I'm ministering there. If I
Come
lose a
on.
life, I can't minister. Everywhere I am, I utilize that time. That time is real important to me. So no matter where I am, like Paul, he did most of his writing where? In prison.
You
So
now see, this elder is coming out already. We're gonna have some fun tonight. Okay, well, me, I actually rather lose a year of life. Now, Lord, I'm not ready to go, but I don't want to go to jail either. So if I live to 89 as opposed to 90, I'll take that. Take the year off and I stay out of jail. That's just my choice. All right, last one. Would you rather have all the traffic lights you approach be green or never have to stand in line again?
oh, never have to stand in line again. I don't care about lights being
Yes.
green. Lights being green don't bother me. If it's red, it doesn't bother me. But when you go somewhere, whether it's the movie theater or Publix or Walmart, standing in a long line, if I could skip all that, I'm happy.
Now, see, I thought you were gonna say you rather stand in line so you can minister. Oh, glory. Robo, siande. All right. So, see,
Not at
I
Walmart. I'm getting out
I
of
would
there.
actually rather all the lights be green. Okay, my family and friends will tell you I have road rage,
Okay.
and y'all pray and help. Okay, lay it before the Lord when you pray. Pray for Jazz's road rage because I do have it. All right,
All right.
I
So
would
I,
rather than to sit at a red light for 10 seconds. That's just my thing. All right. So, all right. Well, that
I
was
see
fun.
real
Thank you.
different in all those areas.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
thank you for being a good sport. So I'm glad we were able to start our discussion for tonight. So for those of you that are joining us, like I said, thanks again for coming. Feel free to share this experience, but we're going to get into our topic tonight. Now, topic for tonight, drum roll, please, is toxic masculinity. Now, some of you might say, "Well, what is that, Sister Jazz?" Now, this is a term that's kind of been tossed around for the last couple of years. Toxic masculinity, and more specifically, what we're going to cover tonight is male vulnerability in the African American community. All right. So you'd like, Lord Jesus, Sister Jazz, this is really heavy. But these are topics that even in the church, we need to kind of address and talk about so that, we can overcome these types of obstacles. So let me give you just a little bit about toxic masculinity, and then we're going to get into our conversation, and our special guest is going to help us kind of break down this particular topic and what it is that we can do to combat the lack of vulnerability on both parts, actually. All right. So on the high level, toxic masculinity involves cultural pressures for men to behave in a certain way. All right. And it's likely that toxic masculinity affects boys and men in some fashion, but it refers to the notion that some people's idea of manliness perpetuates domination, homophobia, and aggression. All right. So, this idea that men need to act tough and avoid showing emotions, it can be in some ways harmful to their mental health and affect their relationships. So, they'll have serious consequences in society. All right. So, we're gonna loosely talk of toxic masculinity, but we're basically gonna focus tonight on all right. So let's start with the higher level of toxic masculinity, and then you tell me, Elder Palmer, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that term?
Wow. First of all, again, thank you for having me. This term, toxic masculinity, the first thing I think of is that first word, toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time when we hear that word toxic, I think about something that's poisonous. I imagine something that's destructive or unsafe, something that's harmful, even fatal. If something's toxic, you know that is deadly. And then when you add the word masculinity after it, it adds a whole new meaning, because it's masculinity for me is my identity. And it's hard for me to imagine my identity having anything to do with something that's harmful, or my identity having anything to do with something that's unsafe or destructive or even lethal.
Right.
So when I hear this word toxic, that's what comes to my mind, because, like you said, with the definition, it's just something where we as men adhere to something that we feel like we have to be aggressive. We gotta be violent, tough, domineering, or controlling. And it's really bad in our community. It's bad everywhere, but especially in our community. But when I hear the word toxic, that's what I think of.
So let's break that down a little bit. Why do you think it is that our men, not and like you said, American men across the board, feel like they have to have this is it a defense mechanism? Is it to fit in with the boys? Is it this is just what I was taught by dad, so men don't cry, boys don't cry? Or why do you think that is, that we have this shell with the men?
Wow, that's a really good question. The whole thing, all of those things is true, but if you really want to get to the root of it, you really have to go all the way back. You got to go all the way back to slavery. You got to go all the way back. Remember, I need everybody to think about this. Of course, I'm too young to remember those days, but our parents and grandparents, remember some certain things. The white only signs and the blacks going to the back and all that kind of stuff. Now imagine this back in slavery days. Me as a man getting beaten in front of my wife. Me as a man getting beaten in front of my children. Watching my wife being raped. Watching my boys being beaten and sold to another plantation. And I can't do nothing about it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back there where I have been conditioned, right, by this country in America to say that I am less than. Right?
Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit. Fast forward to today, where I look back and if we remember the Jim Crow days. We remember growing up seeing those signs, especially during Martin Luther King of Black History Month, when you had the sign that says "I am a man."
Yeah.
The only place that we could, as a man, show any type of strength was in our household. And a lot of times it's taken out on our children and our wives, because we dare not do it on the plantation. You dare not raise your voice on that job. You dare not do this in the street because you're dead.
Yes.
So now we raise our children. This is how you need to act. This is how you need to act. This is how you need to act. Watch this. After the laws were changed, our minds didn't change.
We were conditioned.
Already conditioned. So now me, as a father, still teaching my son, you still got to act a certain way in this environment. You still can't show weakness in this environment. You still got to act a certain way in this environment. And it's only perpetuated by movies.
Right.
Okay? Even the toys I play with. What are the toys I get to play with? Superheroes. I get to play with Superman and Batman and all these strong men and He-Man and all that the Hulk. Everything that portrays domination.
Right.
And nothing that has a feminine quality or softness to it. Everything is hard. So I grew up in that. I'm gonna discuss the other stuff later, but even in prison, it's a whole nother culture in prison of how to show forth that strength, because if not, it's that's a whole nother story.
Yes.
How I gotta act in the streets playing basketball. It's a whole nother story. But that's how this thing really started off.
And
really
you're so right, because I So I don't know if anyone else watched this show that used to come on, and they're re-airing it on OWN right now, Underground, the show Underground. So I was into it when it first aired, and now my family will tell you I'm watching it again like I've never seen it, and I'm sitting in front of the television like, oh, what's going to happen? And I already know what's going to happen, right? So you're so right. So those of us that have been watching it, we're at the point now where Ernestine has changed plantations, and she's with a new man, and he's being beaten down by Massa so bad, but he comes home and takes it out on her. He is going upside her head and everything because he can't express that, aggression in any other way. So he comes home and he takes it out on her. So you're absolutely right. This, it goes back to that. And then, we have this stigma, even as women, we have this stigma that we have to keep up. Even as African-American women, we have to be strong. We have to be able to handle whatever is thrown at us. And we got to, not cry through it. And if we do cry, we got to keep moving while we're crying. We're not given this space to be vulnerable and to say, hey, I'm not okay today. I need my friends today. I need my whomever today. You know what I mean? And it's even okay for those who are leaders to say, today is not a good day. Okay. I know that most of you are depending on me to pray for you, but today I need you to pray for me. Right. So we can identify with the vulnerability and the realness, even in leadership. And when I say leadership, I'm not just referring to church, but, leadership at home, even as husbands or wives or whomever, if you're the head of your house, it's okay to come in and say, I'm not okay today.
Right.
So let's do this. Let's talk about what ways you think you may have been conditioned to vulnerable, and then ways you personally may have overcome those things.
Well, first of all, we're all conditioned by our environment. I know people may not agree with that, but it's just a fact. No matter how saved you are, if you grew up here, it's much different than growing up in China or India or Yugoslavia. If you grew up here in the United States, you have seen some things. There are political pressures, there are social pressures, there are economic pressures that all shape us in the way this society wants us to behave and act. But we'll start with growing up as a male child. The first thing we learn how to do, the first thing we're given are toys, all right? Mm-hmm. And the toys shape how you should think. Where if my sister had an easy bake oven,
right,
I was playing with a toy gun. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm talking about back in the day when it wasn't a problem to have a toy gun with plastic bullets in it. That's what I had.
Right.
I wasn't given the Barbie doll to braid her hair. I was given army men to play with.
Right.
Okay. And I was given superheroes to play with. I wasn't given the teddy bear. Okay. So what's happening here is I'm learning how to suppress. I'm learning how to suppress my real feelings and only show forth what the Hulk or He-Man is showing, with the strength at all times. Right. Then my father takes me outside, and then I fall one day. And what did he tell me? Don't cry, suck it up. You'll be all right. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not given the space to cry. I'm given the space to show strength. Mm-hmm. That is what is accepted. That is what, you all right. You all right. Come on. Let's go back out there and play again. Right. And then you still bleeding.
Right. And in pain.
You still in pain. Right. But then if I run to mommy, what happens is she'll pick me up and she'll hug me.
Yeah.
And she'll kiss the boo-boo and make it go away. And in your mind, it really went away because she kissed it. You know what I'm saying? And so she'll put a Band-Aid on it. She'll put some, she'll wipe it off with some alcohol that burn a little bit. And she'll blow it. It'll be all right. But it's a whole nother side. So I learned quickly which side to go to for certain situations. I learned it early because they're going to handle it in two different ways. I also believe that both sides is necessary.
Absolutely.
Okay? I do believe that both sides are necessary, but we learn it from a child by what the toys were given. And then I'm off to the basketball court. And this is what happens on court. Okay. Vulnerability is not a positive attribute. All right. Let me tell the ladies out there right now. If you're playing basketball, being vulnerable is not a good thing. Okay. It's not good. Because if you are vulnerable, that means you're showing a weakness on the court, and that will be exposed to your opponent, and they will make sure they expose that to win the game. So you don't expose it in football. You don't expose it in basketball. I don't know what sport, boxing, I don't know what sport is okay to be vulnerable. So in our society, vulnerability is not a good thing.
Right.
You know, because it shows your weakness. So it doesn't matter if it's on the basketball court. It doesn't matter if you're just growing up in the house. If you're in school, in all these areas, we're shown a certain way to act and not be vulnerable. So those are behaviors that we learn. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good, but sometimes we could take it a little bit too far.
That's good. I like that. I heard someone say on one of the many podcasts that I listen to that we condition our boys and our men not to be vulnerable, right? And then when we get in marriages, we expect them to be.
Exactly.
But we haven't given them the tools to be vulnerable. So we're like, my husband won't open up. He won't cry. He won't, he won't speak to me. He won't not speak to me, but he won't open up to me. He won't be vulnerable with me, but he wasn't conditioned that way.
That's right.
Right. So it's almost like the woman who's been groomed all this time to be a virgin, and then she gets married and her husband wants her to be a video vixen. It doesn't work like that overnight.
Right.
So like we have to kind of break these barriers down, and it takes time, to kind of help them to open up. And so let's talk about that for a little bit. So what does it look like for a male today to be vulnerable? What does that look like?
Oh, wow. Today, what it would look like, well, we got to first define what it is, because a lot of people really have a misconception of what vulnerability is. So, but you're right, what you said before about in marriage, we expect the men to now open up. And vulnerability has to do with showing who you really are. Because I can tell you something all day. I can tell you something, and you still don't know who I am.
Right.
So let me give an example of what it means to be vulnerable. It would be something like, if I came to you today, Jazz, and I said, I lost my job. It sounds like I'm being vulnerable, but all I gave you was facts.
Mm-hmm.
But if I tell you now, I don't know how I'm going to support my family. I don't know how this makes me feel horrible. I can't go home and tell my wife because I feel less than a man without coming home with some money. Now I'm letting you inside my mind.
Yes.
Before I just told you what happened to me. That's not vulnerability. Vulnerability is now showing you how that made me feel.
Right.
Okay. So what that looks like in terms of your question, what that looks like today is being in a situation and being naked. We have to go back to Genesis.
Yeah.
Because Genesis is the true definition of vulnerability.
Yes.
Okay. When I'm being vulnerable, the Bible says I'm naked, that Adam and Eve, they were naked and not ashamed. Okay. So that means that they didn't have on a mask. They saw each other for who they were. There was no hidden agendas. There was nothing that I'm hiding in the closet somewhere. You knew everything about, there was no surprises. And number one, we're not brought up like that. We're not trained like that, because those things are not positive attributes. In business, you can't show your hand. Even if I'm playing a game of Monopoly. What do? We hide all our properties. We hide everything we got. Right? We're playing a game of Blend. I'm hiding my cards. I don't care if it's Uno. I'm hiding my hand.
Right.
I do that in life. I'm gonna hide my hand. I don't want you to see me. But then in marriage, like you said, all of a sudden, I got to lay out all my cards on the table. I don't know how to do that.
Right.
Not doing it. Not doing it.
Right. Right.
I'm not gonna lay my cards down until you tell me it's my turn, and I'm forced to lay it down.
Mm-hmm.
But until that time, I'm holding my cards. And because I tell you something, it's a trick, really, because you assume I'm being open. I give you the impression I'm being open because I told you something about me. Because in the dating process, I said, I like ice cream and pizza is my favorite, and I like my favorite color is blue, and my favorite number is 3. That's the extent of what we do in the dating process. Okay, but we don't get down and dirty into really what's going on in our minds, and we have to do that in order for our life to work, in order for our marriages to work, in order for our relationship with God to work. When that works, everything else works.
And that's so good, because I think sometimes even the person that's just giving the facts, they're being vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Because even with me just giving you that piece of information, maybe in the previous relationship or in friendships or whatever, I wouldn't even do that much. Right. So now I'm thinking I'm being vulnerable because I told you I got fired. I may not be telling you how I feel about it, but I'm being open and vulnerable. So, even in relationships, friendships, whatever it is, this is a whole separate topic, but teach each other how to communicate with each other so we know, what that means. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you what the difference is between transparency and vulnerability. And you've started to explain that with the fact of, if I just tell you that I got fired, that's transparency, right?
Yeah.
But the vulnerability piece is, now I feel like, what am I going to do? Right. And do I feel comfortable sharing that with whomever, spouse, family, even if you're single? Do you feel comfortable calling your mom to say, Mom, I got fired today? And if you second guess making that phone call, why is that? Right. So just talking about the difference between transparency and vulnerability, because a lot of us will throw around that term as well. Well, I'm transparent. I'm being transparent. I'm being open. I'm being transparent. When really, you're just giving us the surface level of information.
Yeah, that's good.
But deep down, you're not open enough to tell me, hey, when you said such and such, that hurt my feelings. Right. I'll just speak for me. I didn't grow up hearing dad, uncles, whomever say that their feelings were hurt. Right. But that's good information for me to know, because if I know, then now I know not to repeat the offense. Right. So how do we get past that hurdle, right? So us as women, wives, daughters, whomever, how do we help to get past the hurdle of allowing our men to be vulnerable with us, right? How can we contribute to that? And yes, it's going to be step by step. So I'm not expecting, the answer to be by tomorrow, he's going to be. But what steps can we take to assist in breaking down this wall of toxic masculinity, if you will?
All right. So I'm going to back up to something else you just said, because I don't think that people really understand. Because like you said, we throw around this word. We use the word synonymously, transparency and vulnerability. We said all the time, I'm transparent. I'm being vulnerable. I'm being open. And those all three mean 3 different things.
Yes.
We use it like it's the same thing. But it's not. So let me give you this example. Let me give you everybody listen. This is it. The best way I could put it is like this. Okay. I need you to see transparency is being able to see through something, like a window to your house. So if I came to your house, Sister Jazz, and I look through the window, the glass in front of me is transparent, but I'm not in the house yet. Yes. Number one, you haven't let me in the house. Number 2, you haven't given me permission to go around the rooms. Number 3, I haven't looked inside that closet yet. I'm just seeing through the glass right now. And if you don't like something that I'm looking at, you can close the blind.
Yes.
Right there, close the blinds. And you're still safe. You know why? I'm on the outside.
Yes.
I'm on the outside. So now transparency is unlocking the door. The vulnerability. Vulnerability is now unlocking the door and letting me in the house.
Come on.
Okay? Once I get in the house, you allow me to walk around any room I want to. Underneath the bed, in the closet. You know that room that nobody can go in? I'm allowed to go in that room freely. Because truth be told right now, so Jazz, if you said, can I come by your house? I'm going to tell you, you got to wait until Saturday at 11 o'clock because I need time to do what? Clean up.
Clean up.
I don't mind you coming in, but I don't want to show certain things to you because I'm not that vulnerable. I don't mind you coming in, but I want to arrange it the way I want it arranged. And that's what we do in relationships. We want to arrange it the way we want to arrange it. And that is not vulnerability.
Yes.
Vulnerability is allowing you to come in unannounced.
Yes.
Allowing you to come in unannounced and free. Now watch this. To make a judgment to what you see in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I don't want to be vulnerable because I don't want you to judge me. So when I let you in, if I let you in my house, if I let you in and you are free to go around anywhere, then I have to be ready to accept your criticism and your rejection. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to reject it. So that man in that marriage, the reason that he doesn't open up because he don't feel safe. So what he does is he keeps you on the outside looking in. And some of us are satisfied with looking in. We are satisfied in a relationship, married, with looking through the glass, looking to see where he at. That's why it doesn't work. You wake up the next day wondering, who is this I married? I don't even know him. A year later, you ain't even find out. You just now finding out some of his proclivities, some of his habits, some of his tendencies. You just now finding out. You ain't know before? You ain't asked no questions about the stash under the bed? You just now figuring it out? Oh, that's why you only dated for 3 days. Then you put a ring on the finger. You never knew him.
Right.
We got to date long enough to know who that person really is when they get fired off a job, when somebody cuts them off on the middle of the road. In different situations, we got to see how they're going to respond. Because you need to know if they're going to snap off at you when they get mad. Mm-hmm. And that person has to be vulnerable not to hide that. Because we got a lot of actors in marriages too. They know how to hide real well. But eventually those things come out. Yes. So that's the thing. That's the thing. We don't want to be judged. We don't want people to see who we really are. So we protect that. I call that the interview. We send our representative to the interviews. You know why? Because if you're an employer and I'm trying to get a job, I'm gonna look my best. I'm gonna have on that tie. My shoes will be clean. They might be brand new because I don't want you to think negatively of me. So I'm gonna send my representative. That's the way I want you to see me at all times. You know, my resume is only gonna have good things. And we're fooling wives, we're fooling girlfriends, we're fooling these relationships thinking this is who we are, and it's not. It's only a part of who we are. The image that I want the world to see. That's toxic too, because we bring that toxic mess into our marriages. We bring it from the street to the bedroom. The same one. Okay? Yes. So that's the problem we're having in our relationships. Now you can go to the question you was really asking me.
Listen, this is so good. This is so good. So I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to come back to the question I was really asking you. Because I like the idea of even follow-up questions, and I'm here, with this even in my life as it relates to not just marriage, because I've been married 11 years happily, and God has really blessed us. But even as it relates to friendships and businesses, right? Business relationships, right? So we tend to put focus into romantic relationships, right? And then we don't put so much focus into other relationships. Okay. So we'll put this magnifying glass on my husband, my wife, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, whatever it is. And then when it's time to have a regular relationship with maybe your aunt, okay, you tend to overlook dysfunction because that's not a relationship that you're necessarily putting a magnifying glass or investment into, right? But it's still chipping away at whatever the underlying issues are that you are trying to overcome within yourself. So let me be more clear on what I'm saying. So if I'm trying to, or have been trying to for some time in my life, to a certain level of self-esteem, right? Maybe I suffer with low self-esteem. I've recognized it and I'm actively working on it. Not judging myself, giving myself space to make mistakes, and know that I am still who I am in Christ, even though I may not be where I want to be, right? But I have a particular relative. I'm not even going to say it's a romantic relationship. I'm just going to say it's a cousin or something. This is it. I'm throwing off on any of my cousins. All my cousins are great. But I have a cousin that every time they come into my space, they make me feel like this. And I've never addressed it. Never taken the time to address it and say, listen, when you say or do X, Y, Z, it makes me feel this way. Right? So we don't often think about putting that same time and energy into cultivating friendships and familial relationships as we do into relationships, when those are just as important in contributing to the character you're trying to build.
Right.
Right? Okay. Now, I've said that, right? Now to the question of what can we do, and you touched on it already, to help to break down these walls. So one of the things you already touched on is giving men a safe space, right? So if I feel like every time I speak to my wife or whomever, I'm going to be attacked, I'm going to retreat.
Right.
Why am I going to keep coming to get beat up? Right? So what can we do to help kind of break those walls down as women?
Especially, well, women in general, and especially wives in a close relationship with her husband in that particular situation, in any situation, you can't push. This is the thing. Vulnerability and having emotions are easier for women. I don't want to put all women in a box. Don't get me wrong. Some of y'all that says, well, my husband's really open. Okay, that's good for him. But just in general, it's easier for women to be open, more vulnerable, more transparent than men. That's how God made them. All right. Mm-hmm. And take that away. And that being said, it's assumed by some of them, not all, by some of them, that because it's easy for them, it should be easy for him. Mm-hmm. So they project that on him, but it's not. Just because he's a man, he got this hard shell, we think that he can do anything. But you got to understand that masculinity for a man and vulnerability, first of all, our ego is as fragile as an egg.
Yeah.
Egg. You say one thing to us, we're done.
Yeah.
The facade is gone. If a woman know the right thing to say to a man, it will crush him. And he'll have a hard time building himself back up.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't nag him. You cannot push him. You can't badger him. The main thing you could do, number one, is pray.
Yes.
Pray. It might sound cliche to some of you, but that's all we got.
Yes.
Prayer changes things.
Yes.
The second thing you have to do, I'm gonna give you some a couple of strategies here. Number one is pray. Number two is model it. You have to model the behavior that you want to see. Okay.
That's
if
good.
You model the behavior, he will watch you. I'll give you an example. I'm gonna be transparent right now. This is transparent. It's not vulnerable, but it's transparent.
Okay.
I'm on the intercessory team with my church and my wife. My wife's on it too, right?
Okay.
As the man of the house, I should be the main one praying. I should be the main one fasting and being the priest of the home and the visionary and all those things I'm supposed to be. Okay. Now, truth be told, my wife is more of a prayer than I am. Okay. So since we joined the team, and since we joined the I team, we call it the I team. I've been watching her. She has been modeling what it looks like to be a prayer in the home.
Yes.
She never pushed me into it. She never badgered me. She never said, well, you're supposed to be the man, so you ought to be praying first. I don't want to pray all the time. I'm supposed to be the weaker vessel. She didn't go through all that.
Yeah.
What she did was model it. And after a while, I started to mimic and copy her. Why?
Good.
Because she provided a safe place for me to do that.
That's
I'm not
good.
doing it because she made me do it, or she forced me to do it, or she nagged me over and over to do it. Because if she did that, I'll never do it.
Yes.
Because as a man, I ain't got to do what you say do. And that's how we respond. That's when our men come out. You're not going to force us to do something we don't want to do. But because it was modeled by her, I was able to do that without feeling intimidated, without feeling less than a man, without feeling anything negative to my manhood, because I was following her. So I followed my wife's lead. And guess what? I'm still the man.
Yes. Yes.
So pray and model it and provide a positive male role model. Positive male I need to find. Or if I'm doing that for my son, or if a single parent, a woman, is doing that for her son, she must find a positive male role model that they can follow and emulate. Okay, those will be the things that will help out our Black community, especially our Black boys, to find ways to not follow in this negative, stereotypical area of toxicity.
I love it. I love it. Those are great practical ways. And I hope, ladies, you are taking notes. This conversation is so good. So I'm going to say something. I'm going to share something. I'm going to be transparent for a moment too. And while we're doing this, if you all have any questions for Elder Palmer, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're going to take just a moment to address a couple of questions, but just a transparent moment as well. So everyone who knows me knows that I am my dad's right hand, right? And there are times where I can sometimes, not all the time now, because he is the head and the visionary, but there are sometimes I can see things coming just before he can see them coming.
Right.
And there have been times in the past where I will call and say, okay, Dad, we kind of need to steer in this direction or that direction because this is where we're headed, right? And in the past, when I have kind of pushed in a certain direction, I'll get pushed back. And I've had to go back and regroup and say, okay, how do I handle this, right? And in prayer, the Lord will tell me, pray. You took it to him, but you didn't bring it to me.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So then I change the perspective and the trajectory of how I want this handled, and I take it to my knees. Then he comes to me and says, I was thinking the other day, we should do such and such. And I'm like, right. And I'm like, that's a great idea, Dad. The whole time in my mind, I'm like, I told you that 3 months ago, but you know what? That's a great idea, Dad. We should do it. But because we have to know how to handle, as women, we have to know how to handle, not just the male ego, but men in leadership, whether it be your father, your pastor.
Are you frozen? Can you guys hear me? People online? Anybody in the chat? Can y'all still hear me? Okay. All right, she'll be back in a second. She will be back in a second. All right, good. I just saw what you guys were saying. So anyway, good. I'm glad you guys can hear me. So what I'll do is I'll keep talking till she get back. I'm sure that she's working on a little bit of technical difficulty. But it's real important that we work out this this area of vulnerability. Just like I was saying earlier, it's very toxic with our boys. It's very important that we raise our boys to be able to deal with certain situations a certain way. I don't want my son. Of course, fathers know we don't want our sons looking weak. I'm sorry. I don't want my son looking weak in any situation. But at the same time, I need him to be able to be vulnerable in certain situations. Do I want him vulnerable in every situation? No, I don't want my son vulnerable in every single situation. But in certain situations, he needs to learn when and where to be vulnerable, especially in relationships or at work or with his parents. In every situation, it's a little bit different. So, Jazz, you are back. Yay. Can you hear me?
Gary, I don't know what happened there. Yes. Okay, so thank you for keeping us going. Somehow I got booted out, but I just wanted to just thank you for those practical ways, those nuggets that we can use to kind of start to break the walls down, of the lack of vulnerability with our males. So if you have any closing remarks or anything you want to share with us before we close out tonight, feel free to do so at this time. If anyone has any questions, you guys can put those in the chat as well. We'll take a few moments and address those. And I just want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Elder Palmer for joining us tonight. This discussion has been amazing. And I'm hoping that this will at least open the door for you all to have some conversations at home, right? So that's the whole point of us having this life class and going through these several topics that we'll do, each month, is to open the door for you all to have conversations at home. To give you the tools to have these types of conversations at home and to better improve your lives practically, right? At Lighthouse Worship Center, we get a lot of word, right? So we are well versed in the word. We love the word and we love our leader and his teaching. But we want to make sure giving you all some practical things that you all can do in your lives and carry on in your lives. All right. So Elder Palmer, do this. Share with us where they can find you, where they can follow you. I know you and your wife have a wonderful marriage ministry. Share with us where they can follow you and find you. And feel free, if you have any closing remarks, to let us know, and then we'll close out for tonight.
Oh, yes. First of all, thank you again for the invitation. This has been great. And this should just be the just the start of a whole new conversation. This is just the beginning. It really is.
Yes.
Obviously, we have not exhausted this entire understanding of toxic masculinity. This is just touching the surface of it. But those of you who would like to reach me, you can easily email me if you need to speak to my wife or I personally at valueyourmarriage@gmail.com. That's valueyourmarriage@gmail.com. If you want to follow my wife and I, we have our ministry online on YouTube at Value Your Marriage and also Instagram and Facebook at Value Your Marriage. It's real easy to find. It's very easy to find. Subscribe. That would really help us out a lot. And you'll be able to keep up with anything that we're involved in and that we're doing. And also, of course, our videos that we put out regularly. That's mainly it. There's only one thing I want to talk about, and that's who each one of us should be vulnerable with. And I want everybody to know that you can't be vulnerable. Unfortunately, you can't be vulnerable everywhere because there are people who will take advantage of you. There are people who will exploit that vulnerability.
Absolutely.
But you need to be vulnerable, number one, with God, and you need to be vulnerable with your wife, especially men. You got to figure out a way. Y'all got to talk about this thing. You got to be vulnerable and open and honest and not just transparent, but you got to go one step further into vulnerability so that you can really get to know each other so that you can follow the instruction of Genesis that says be naked and not ashamed. We want to get to that point. All right. So I hope this has blessed. I hope this has blessed you. I know it has me. Thank you again, Sister Jazz.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome. And the only thing I would add to that is being vulnerable with yourself, because sometimes we're not even self-aware enough to be vulnerable with someone else. So that's the only thing I would add is, be vulnerable enough with yourself. Feel your feelings. Okay. A lot of times we are, shunned for expressing emotions or feeling your feelings. But do you know God gave us those? Like the feelings didn't just magically pop up there. So there's a reason that he's given us those particular. You just have to know how to feel them, navigate through them, and use them to get where it is that he wants us to go. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you again, Elder Palmer. Thank you so much for being a part of this very first life class tonight. It has been awesome. And so I want to just open the floors for a moment for those of you who would like to sow into this life class ministry tonight. Everything, has an expense. So feel free to sow into the ministry tonight. The ways to give will be on your screen in just a moment. So feel free to sow into the life class ministry tonight. We are going to continue to bring these types of topics. We are going to continue to bring you very knowledgeable special guests, and we are going to tackle life one class at a time. So take a moment to sow into the ministry tonight. Also give a shout out to my brother-in-law. So those of you know I love graphic tees. So tonight I'm wearing his graphic tee. Faith plus belief equals victory. You guys can follow him at Pastor Son the Brand on Instagram, or you guys can feel free to DM me on Instagram and I'll send you information as well. So shout out to my brother-in-law, Marcus Palmer, for starting his clothing line. I'm so very proud of him. So thank you all so very much for joining us. I want to thank Bishop specifically for allowing us this platform, for giving us this opportunity to share and to address these types of issues. So thank you so much, Bishop. We love you. We love you, Lady June. And we definitely love and want to continue to pray for our church mother, Mother Brown. We honor our leaders at Lighthouse Worship Center. Join us next month, March 24th, for our second life class. At 7 p.m., we'll go live once again with another topic and a special guest. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next month. God bless you.